My guest today is Kimberly Stuart, author of 9 books, podcast host, speaker, and coach to hundreds of aspiring writers alongside best-selling author Bob Goff. She is funny, she's real, she has a way of putting words to things that you've been feeling but couldn't quite name. Her most recent book is Star for Jesus and Other Jobs I Quit, Rediscovering the Grace that Sets Us Free. And I'll just say it like this, I have read it twice. There's not many books that I've read twice. And there is a quote hanging from it in my downstairs loo. That is how good this book is. So go and grab it right now. In this episode, we talk about grace that is so scandalously unearned, it genuinely doesn't make sense, what performing for God actually looks like in everyday life, and what happens to your faith when grief hits in the most unexpected and devastating way. If you've ever tried to tidy yourself up before coming to God, or just need to be reminded that He sees you, then this one is for you. There is a lot of growing in this episode. Are you ready? Let's go. Thank you so much for joining us on the Grow and Go podcast today. I have so been looking forward to this conversation.
Well, you know, you don't even have to ask twice for me to be in the same room with you and Tyler. This is total joy. Thank you for making time to chat with me.
I am so excited. Okay, so for those who don't yet know you, which would be absurd in my mind because everybody should know you, I mean, they just should. Let's play a little bit of a game to get to know you a bit better. So we'll play a bit of this or that.
Okay.
It's quick fire, no right or wrong answer, but we'll just see where we go. So, coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee. And
how many?
Can I have an and? Depends on the time of the day.
Go on then. Yeah.
Both.
Lots of coffee, or just like a one.
Oh, I can elaborate. Okay, I didn't know if this was rapid fire. I really love a cappuccino every single morning. I started drinking coffee at about 40. Age 40. Weirdo. You too.
Yeah.
What were we
tea
doing
and
before
coffee.
then?
Didn't drink either before. I still can't do full on coffee. I've worked my way into a mocha, maybe a flavored latte. That's about as far as I've got so far. It has to be very sweet. If it's not sweet, then why would you?
Okay, I'm the opposite. I love bitter. No sweeteners, whole milk. I'll do some whole milk. And I love tea as well. I really love this decaf because of the afternoon and my age. Hot cinnamon flavored Harney and Sons. Love it.
I had like a cinnamon tea the first time ever in my life when I was in Charleston, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And it was like everywhere I went, and they don't really have it here. And I was like, oh, this is nice. I quite liked it. So I get on board with you for that one. Okay. Early bird or night owl?
In different seasons of my life, I've had to tap into different parts of me. I'm actually so high maintenance that I don't think I'm either. I think I hope I get 9 hours, and then, I'm never up past 7:30. I can't sleep in anymore after children.
Yeah.
But also I'm a pumpkin after 11. So
yeah, Dan jokes with me that there's kind of 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's a good window for me.
Yeah.
The rest of the time, just don't bother.
That's a pretty small window. Are you morning or night? Or are you both?
I'm more naturally a morning person.
Okay.
But the problem is Dan is a late night person.
Yeah.
And so he comes alive and starts talking these deep and meaningful conversations, and you don't want to miss it. So you stay up late to kind of hear the thoughts and be in the room. Got to be in the room where it happens, but then the next day you're ruined. So now we have that in my marriage. It's a tricky one.
We have that in our marriage.
Yeah.
Mark is the opposite of Dan. He's up at the absolute crack and has so many words. So many words at such an early hour. I've heard my daughter, Thea, our youngest, is more like me and has just a slower start in the morning. And I heard her the other day. I was upstairs and I heard Mark prattling. And I heard Thea say, Dad, that is just many too many words for me at this hour. But if you could give me an hour, I thought that's so good. That was so soft of her to say. So no objects thrown. Just please hold. We'll return. Mm-hmm.
I love that. Mountains or beach?
Oh, these are hard questions because I love all of them. We recently got to go to a place that had mountains along the beach, which,
come on.
That was the best of all things. Just absolutely stunning. I never got over it. You?
There was a lot of that kind of good situation of like amazing scenery and beach in New Zealand. And
Oh,
then
the
we came back
best.
here and the kids, the church youth group did a beach trip in
Oh,
air
oh.
quotes, in the south of England, and it was just a lot of stones. And the kids like sent me a message on their phone with a picture like, "What is this? This is not a beach." And I was like, "Yeah,
Oh,
welcome to England,
man.
kids. Yeah, it's all
New
changed." It was
Zealand
quite funny.
beaches would spoil a person, so yeah, I bet that was a shocker.
They are pretty stunning, to be
Mhm.
fair. Um, okay, so you are an author who has written several books. So this next one, when you are writing a book, do you plot the whole thing out first, or do you
Mm.
start and see where it goes?
The plotter or pantser question. Do I write by a plot or by the seat of my pants? I've tried both. I've
Okay.
written both novels and nonfiction. For novels, I have 8 published novels, and I would say 1 through 5 were more pantser, and then beyond
Okay.
that were more plotter. And I found a system about halfway through that helped me feel like I wasn't going to write myself into a corner, but still had enough freedom to let the characters become who they were. For nonfiction, I had no plot at all. I just kind of
Yeah.
started unpacking, and after I realized it took me a long time, about 30,000 words into the book, before I printed it all off, put it on the floor of my office, and per chapter limited myself to about 1 sentence or phrase per chapter of what is this? What is the heartbeat of this chapter?
Mm.
What's the lighthouse for every chapter for the reader? And I read them in order and thought, "Oh, I'm writing a book about grace." So I did not know that starting
Ah.
out, but that was what kept emerging. So that's what
Yeah,
worked for
we are
me.
going to definitely come on to that book about grace, which I do have here. Ta-da! Star for Jesus and Other Jobs I Quit. My camera's fuzzy because it's just on my face. Um, we are going to come to this. This is a great book, guys. I know I tell
Yeah.
you often that there are great books. This is one of the few books that I have read more than once
Oh my
because I love it so
gosh.
much.
That
So
is
come on now.
high praise. Thank you.
There
Wow,
is
wow.
like, and not only that, and Kim does know this, I have a quote from her book hanging in my downstairs bathroom or lavatory or whatever you call it, depending where you are in the world, which is brilliant. And we'll come to that later as well.
Oh, please
But
let's
before we
return.
before we get to that, I just want to know: do you have a preference between the fiction and nonfiction writing?
Mm. Right now I'm wholly captivated by non, but
Okay.
I was in fiction for a very long time. And
Yeah.
so, I think I wore out that muscle, and I just am not as interested in it right now. I could return, but, nonfiction right now is what's lighting my fire. I do love to read all things.
Hmm.
So my
Yeah.
reading habits have not gotten narrow, but my writing interests have narrowed a little bit.
Do you have a current list of kind of books that are like piles high that you're waiting to read that you're really excited to get
Ah,
into?
yes, and it's such a problem. I keep a list on my phone, and I am fully aware that Jesus will call me home before I can make it through that list. There's no like the math won't work anymore. There's no
Yeah.
way I'll be able. Do you keep a to read pile?
Yeah, I currently have, hang on, 2, 4, 6, 8,
Uh-huh.
10, 12, 14, 15 stacked next to me just that are in like relation to research that I want to read for the next book that I want to write.
Oh,
And I'm
golly.
so excited to get into them. And what's hilarious is one of the books in that pile I bought twice because I thought it looked so good.
I've done that before.
And I was like,
And then
oh,
it's
okay.
that's
Whoops.
you are meant to read that book. You've got to
Yeah.
read it. It keeps
Yeah. And
circling
so
back.
then I'll be able to give one away. So it'll be
That's
delightful.
awesome.
Something that I have heard you say in the past is that your husband is brave.
Mm.
Could you elaborate?
Probably, I probably said that because he remains married to me, and it is a wild ride. He didn't know. We don't know when we marry each other what's really going to happen. We know all the best versions because we spit chime during the dating process. So, Mark, we've been married 27 years. We were college sweethearts. Um, and we just said yesterday to each other, I really love you more today than I did
I
the
love
day
that.
I said yes to
Yeah.
you. So it's a deeper, more well-educated love.
Hmm.
and it's been through a lot. So he's brave because in part, because he's just surrounded by big personalities. We have 3 kids, and they all are a lot of beauty. And they're all super different and also think each other is the most hilarious person. So it's just a loud house and a lovely house. And Mark grew up in a fairly more restrained house with classical music playing and really pretty glass-covered tables. And
Yeah.
so I think he's probably perpetually surprised that this is his life. But he's got up again, chatterbox in the morning. He's got plenty to say, even as he is an introvert. So
Okay. I love that. Yeah, Dan and my upbringings were also quite wildly different. And I think sometimes he probably thinks, did you just say that? Like, did you actually, like, is this the conversation we're having at the dinner table? Can I leave? I don't want to be the grown up in this situation. So yeah,
that's very relatable. That's very relatable.
I grew
Our
up with
kids-
everything's on the table, heart on your sleeve, it all comes out. There's no filter. Let's go. I love it. Okay, so let's go to the book, the amazing book. Now, first of all, do tell us about this lovely young lady on the front that you're probably quite pleased is like not in focus at the minute.
Not please. Okay, so Emma's referring to, there's a photo on the front of the book of me in 8th grade graduation, wearing I would say something that could be considered something out of a separatist cult. But I ordered that dress. I loved that dress. This was in the late 80s. We had some Laura Ashley pioneer fashion.
Laura Ashley, come on.
Did you do this? Did you ever wear
We
Ashley?
have Laura Ashley here. Yeah.
Is
Well,
Laura
not
Ashley
anymore, we don't,
English?
but we did,
I feel
yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah.
Big collars.
You can get like
lots of-
cushion covers and everything. Yes, the frills on the collars
yeah,
and
lot
like
of florals.
curtains. All the florals.
I was
Yeah.
wearing a curtain, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that look. And my editor, after reading after I'd been working on the manuscript for a while, she said, "Why don't you just send me some photos of where this era, some of these stories, particularly the story about being a star for Jesus and tap dancing for him. What did that look like?" Well, that wasn't an innocent question. Okay, she had a plot. And the plot
editor.
was, I'm going to put this on the cover of a book that will be released to Target stores nationwide so that people who are walking and just trying to get their Joanna Gaines are going to see you in your curtain dress. And then they photoshopped this little Bible in my hand. First, it was a black Bible, which looked even cultier-ish. So now it's bright pink, but that's going to be with me till the end of days. So
yeah,
be careful what you send your editor.
Oh gosh, yes. Okay, noted. Star for Jesus and Other Jobs I Quit. Tell us about the title. It feels quite honest, and I think, having read the book, something that many can relate to. But just give us a little inside peek as to what do you mean by that?
Well, the heartbeat behind that really is in the subtitle. So the subtitle is Rediscovering the Grace That Sets Us Free. I spent a long time nodding about the grace of God and furiously paddling underneath the water. So saying, wow, that is so great that God is gracious. And then I'd turn around and try to help him out and think, well, you did part of the work on the cross, but here, I'm going to help you with the little last 25%. I don't think I would have articulated this for most of my life. I grew up in a house with a ton of grace. I cannot blame this on my parents. I can't really even blame this on my very flawed church experience, which everyone has because every church is flawed. I don't think my church at all was saying to me, you know what you need to do? You need to earn the favor of God. But somewhere along the line, I got the wires crossed. And I assumed that the economy that I use everywhere else, which is earn your way, get to stay, earn your keep, and then you get to eat, right? All of those processes that I have everywhere else in my job, even in my human relationships, that would apply to God. And it doesn't. Grace will not play with my own effort. That's the point. And
Mm.
so it took many, many years for me to stop just agreeing with God and actually let that truth root deeply in me. And my knee jerk still is to just be baffled by grace. It doesn't make any sense to me
Yeah.
how I don't have to do something. I don't have to be something. I don't have to take something to the table. I don't have to, make myself shiny or root out all the junk before I go talk with him. It doesn't make sense to me. And that's just the single most beautiful thing in my life.
For somebody who is listening and they've heard you say, like the sense of needing to earn God's favor or
Mm.
to show up for him, like just to help him out a little bit, kind of to be the shiny Christian, what sort of behaviors or traits or patterns do you think
Mm.
that looks like for the average Christian who does love Jesus and wants to do their best at loving Jesus, but accidentally slips into this
Mm.
performing for him role?
Yeah. I can just speak to what it's looked like for me. And for me, I am a firstborn female. I really like productivity. I like checklists. Um, and I just let that infect the way I look at my experience with and communion with God. So have I met with him regularly? And even there, I'm already busted because the
Yep.
meeting with can get real janky.
Yeah.
I'm learning this anew right now in my life, right now, in the last like 9 months again, that my tendency is to approach even my conversations with God as something performative. And as in, I'm going to praise you and thank you, and I'm going to offer you kind of a sanitized version of what I'm going through, and then end with some phrases of "I trust you, God," and "I'll wait to see what you do." I mean, who talks to their best friend like that? No one.
Yep.
Right? No one. I would never go on a walk with Mark and have a 3-point conversation. I'd like to
Yeah.
begin, Mark, by talking to you about how grateful I am for you. He'd be like, "What are you smoking? Where's my wife?" So why would I do that to the God who knows me even better than Mark
Yeah.
and who ferociously, stubbornly loves me? So for me, one of the very first pauses always has to be, how am I talking with Jesus? Am I starting out with questions? I often do not start out with questions. I start out with declarative sentences.
Hmm.
I uh, I let him know, and I'm parroting a lot of the things that I've grown up with or heard elsewhere. And he's very patient. But if I visualize, I'm assuming he's kind of like, "Okay, kiddo,
Get
can
it
we
out the
skip
way.
this?" Yeah. I've read this wonderful book recently by a guy named J.R. Briggs, and it's called The Art of Asking Better Questions. It's a great book.
Mm.
And one of the touch points in that book is we have got to take more from David's example and ask questions of God
Mhm.
and not feel the need to answer them. Where are you? What are you up to right now? Will you please keep my heart malleable in your hands because I can't see very well? Where are you?
Yeah.
God honors that kind of question asking with a humble posture, but still an honest question.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's one way. And another way is just um, this isn't the least sexy answer in the United States or the UK. Um, just that the eternal coming back to um, you are enough. Period. You are enough. The grace you have for me is enough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to add anything. This isn't a hot fudge sundae and you need more toppings, right? You don't need me to make this better or cleaner or snappier. You're it. You're the
Yeah.
end goal, period. And you already said I'm beloved. That's
Mm.
really countercultural. That's a really tough thing to find anywhere else. So I drag it into how I relate to the Lord.
And I think there's something in we need to keep on coming back to like reassessing what it is that we're doing in the sense of um we can start with a motivation in our hearts that's in the right place. And so, maybe we've had that revelation of like, oh, my prayer life is really weird. Like I'm talking to God weird. So now I'm
Yeah.
going to, like adjust and shift and all the rest of it. And then before we know it, we've slipped back into some new
Mm-hmm.
weird thing, or it's become
Mm-hmm.
rote or kind of something that we tick off that we're trying to do. And it's just this sense that, yeah, so in my book, I write about a situation where, like, face palm. I basically was reading in Acts and just discovering how awesome and incredible it is that, the believers, they're filled with the Spirit, and then they go out and they're bold and they preach the gospel, and like all these wild and incredible things happen. And every time, what happens prior to the amazing things is they're filled with the Spirit again and again. So I was like, okay, I wonder what will happen if I intentionally say to God, like, fill me with your Spirit. And so I started every day saying, like, Holy Spirit, I'm here. Let's go. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. And I went through a season where these wild things were happening, mostly bad things.
Yeah.
Mostly things like dropping eggs on the floor when I was trying to be like a really great mum and cook breakfast, or losing my wedding rings in the washing machine, or my flight being cancelled and the airline not telling me, things like that, But what was wild was in these moments, I started saying like, oh, thank you. Thank you, Jesus. And I was like, who is this person? Like, that's not my natural go-to place. And so I was on this journey of like, fill me with your Spirit every day. And then I kid you not, I turned it into an actual checklist on my to-do list on my phone. And so it had a little, I know.
Listen,
like
you are preaching to the choir.
I know. And so just if you're listening and you're just like, oh, yeah, okay, know that we are not sitting here on the other side of it being like, yes, we've nailed how we talk to Jesus and how we relate to him. And
days.
I think it's just this reminder that again and again and again, we have to keep coming back. We have to keep returning. We have to keep coming back to the feet of Jesus and saying like, it really isn't about me. It's really not. And I keep trying to make it about me and how well I'm going to love you and how I can be such a good Christian girl and I can serve the poor and be on the teams at church and, be a super parent at home. That's definitely not me, just in case my kids are listening in the next room. They'll be like, what? But all these things that we think, we're doing it, and we're doing it for Jesus. Jesus, you're so blessed to have my service in your life. And we have to, again, just keep coming back and reminding ourselves like, no, it's really all about grace. And so you wrote this whole book about grace. If we were to go back to playing this or that, one of my this or that's would be grace that you have to fight for or grace that sneaks up on you.
Oh, I want both. And I want it all the time.
All of the grace.
All the grace. I can't have enough. I mean, I don't think I have to fight for grace. I think I have to fight to get myself out of the way to receive grace. I am in the way.
Yeah.
So mostly it's an internal decision to stop it, to stop the running and the hustling. And, you and I are in the same workspace. We do the same thing. So we're talking with people on podcasts and we're helping to coach people and off mic as well towards a fuller expression of what Jesus might have for them. And we're writing and writing and reading and reading and editing all those words all the time. And then that's not even the thing. We also have to yap about it constantly on social media and in other media spaces. And so it's easy to start confusing the joy and honor and privilege of work like that with a need to earn your space in that space. And that's gross. Nothing good happens. Nothing good happens with that underpinning. And so that's probably the fight. That's probably the most present fight all the time, to say, how do I get to walk with you today, Lord? Like, where's our 3 mile an hour pace today, Lord? Because my natural pace is way faster than what his was when he was walking in Galilee.
Yeah.
And so it's a constant like recalibration. Why don't you take a deeper breath, a slower breath? We just don't see Jesus running ever in the Gospels. We never see him hurried. In fact, he's almost spicy in the way he refuses to hurry. And the way he refuses to answer questions that he won't do yet. And he returns with a question. So I need to learn from that. I have a lot to learn from that. I'd say that's probably the principal struggle for me in my work, for sure. And then just in the normal cadence of my life, I have a lot to learn from him about that. And to me, that seems like a drenched with grace pace.
Pace of grace, not a relentless race. I
Mm,
find myself saying that to myself quite frequently.
mm,
I've been pondering quite a lot recently as well what it means to walk with Jesus and to walk in step with the Spirit. And the thing that I have been noticing about Jesus is how often he was interrupted and how he actually invites those interruptions, and how when I am in the zone doing my
mhm.
work, my plans, the things that I've got on the schedule for the day, and someone interrupts me, I don't like that. I
Huh,
don't see that as a gift or an
uh-huh.
invitation for the kingdom to break in or an opportunity for some incredible moment. I see that as like, get out of my face. I'm busy. Um, and yet, if we are observing Jesus and wanting to learn from his ways and walk with him, then a prayer that I have started praying, and I think it's going to be one of these really foolish ones, because
Dangerous.
oftentimes we say these prayers and then we're like, oh, now God's going to do it, is interrupt my independence. Because I'm so in my own
Good.
world and in my own bubble. And actually, I want to be able to see the things that God is wanting me to
That's
see.
so good.
And therefore, I need to slow down. I need to
That's
be
so good.
interruptible. Um,
Mhm.
yes.
That's really good.
Was was there a moment when you were writing the book and there was something that you like really had to wrestle with putting it in there and you kind of didn't want to, but God was like, finger on the pulse, let's go, Kim.
Oh, yes. In fact, writing fiction, I thought, that has its own challenges. And when you finish a novel, there's no small amount of white knuckling because we live in a time when anyone can have any feeling and then post it. And then it will be on Amazon for 400 years. And it could just be Brenda in Cincinnati who just had a bad burrito and is feeling a little
Maybe.
cranky and hates that character that you wrote and wants it to be there. The problem is you can find that forever and a day, and people can absolutely and are welcome to have very different feelings about the story you chose. With nonfiction, I had a freedom in that I was just reporting. I mean, you can do what you want with it, but these are true stories, and this is what happened. There's no way to for Brenda to say that didn't happen that way. It did, Bren. I was
Mm.
there. So, on one hand, that was an easier road. On the other, as you're alluding to, there is nowhere to hide when you're telling your true story. In a novel, I can just kill someone off. If I don't like this character, she can just conveniently disappear.
See
But
ya.
I'm
Yeah.
related to all the people who I'm writing about, so that's not as much of an option. And if you're writing a book about grace, you better have your eyeball on the fact that you have to extend it to
Mm.
yourself and to the people in the book. So it was, there were definitely chapters I just didn't want to write. Um, there were hard seasons that I write about in that book that I really didn't love living the first time. So I sure didn't want to dumpster
Mm.
dive. And then the other thing, just as a writerly perspective, oftentimes the most important pivotal stories in our lives are the hardest to write because
Yeah.
we've revisited them over and over, and they were so formative and so transformative that it feels like a big job to write them down. So, for example,
Mm.
when I was 2 years old, I was in our backyard, and my dad came home for lunch break, and I snuck out of the backyard and walked next door, and my neighbor ran over me in her car, and I had a bilateral skull fracture. I really should not, medically speaking, I should not be here, and I certainly should not be able to speak with you. So that event and the way God chose to heal my brain and my body was an absolute pivotal point in our family. That's when
Mm.
my dad came to faith. It changed the entire trajectory of our family. In fact, after writing this book, I talked with my adult siblings, my brother and my sister, and it's like, hey, you guys have probably heard this story a million times too. It was like I was just realizing, oh yeah, I'm not the only one who's heard Dad say this 5 million times. Lindsay and Ryan, all of their lives had to hear this story that happened before they were born. So this was a big deal, a humongous deal. The idea of writing this just crippled me. I was full of anxiety about this because I thought, how am I ever going to make my words live up to what a huge deal this was for our family? So I
Mm.
put that thing off forever. I've told this story. I've even written about this story elsewhere, but it just felt too heavy. And
Mm.
I've talked with a lot of writers who can identify with that. Maybe you can too, Em, that sometimes the things that are most important and that we've lived with the longest are the toughest to wrangle, because we just don't think, how will we ever be able to give justice to this, right?
Yeah.
It's changed
Yeah.
so many things. So some things I
Mm.
didn't want to write because they were too hard, and some it just felt like an Everest to be able to put normal language and have it hold up.
Well, if crying and tears is a marker as to like the weight of something, I 100% cried when I read
Mm.
that story in your book because I think you did really
Mm.
convey the significance for your dad of his journey in that, and it's such a powerful story. It's so incredible. Um, okay, I'm going to pivot with you now. You have your own podcast, which is called
For real with Kimberly
For
Stuart.
Real with
Mhm.
Kimberly Stuart. And you are hilarious when you interview the people that you have on that.
Oh
I love
dear.
it. I just love it. You're great.
That was very nice
Big
of you.
fan.
Oh
Fangirl
heavens.
over here. But you also
Clueless.
have
I am clueless. The night before I recorded the first episode, I am not joking. I Googled how to interview someone.
great.
I have no idea. So it's been a learning curve, but thank you for saying such nice things.
Well, I really enjoy your interviews. You also do have another podcast that you co-host with your
Uh-huh.
friend Bob.
Uh-huh.
Now, some people will have heard of Bob. He is sometimes known as the balloon guy. He is known to be quite effervescent and a lot of fun. Um, his surname is Goff, if people hadn't figured it out. And yet, I was thinking about it. I feel that what I know of you is that you are the fun girl. Like you're up for having a bit of fun. You're going on adventure, you're doing the exciting things. So I was just curious, like when you guys are working together, how do you get stuff done?
Question. Well, here's what I would say. First, regarding Bob, before he was Balloon Bob, he was a wickedly successful trial lawyer. And so you don't and he would be the first to say it, raging ADHD. When he writes new books, he has in the corner of his laptop Cliffhanger, the movie, playing
Oh,
actively.
wowzers. Oof.
I need
Okay.
silence and actual earplugs in my quiet house. So we worked very differently. He has a very active, I think one of the most brilliant brains I've ever been able to know well. I mean, he's an extraordinarily bright guy. But for many, many years, he had to have his nose down and worked like a dog. So
Mm,
the balloon piece is kind of an outgrowth of an earlier Bob, and he can engage. He calls it Lawyer Bob. He can engage Lawyer Bob. Um,
okay.
so he has that part of him, but it just isn't, it's not really front facing. And then I really like to crush a list. So I will say, I mean, we've laughed a lot over the years about um, how gracious God has been in pairing us, because we do have very, very different strengths. Um, but I really adore him and adore the way he moves through the world, in part because he's so much like my dad. My
Oh,
dad
I like that.
has they are very, very, very similar in bent and wiring. And I spent a lot of my life watching this entirely like huge, larger than life personality enter a room, say some stuff, and then people would look at me like, what? And I'd say, oh, that means that. And now I just do that with Bob.
Let me interpret. Amazing.
So, yeah, we have different strengths, but we really respect and admire each other and just love hanging out. So it's been good.
That's great. And you do have fun online in how you show up, but you're also quite real. And something that you have also shared about is grief.
Mm,
So how do you hold those two together, humor
mhm.
and grief, like the lighthearted, joyful, with the wow, this is heavy and it's
Yeah.
hard and I feel broken and I'm grieving. How do those
Mhm.
coexist for you?
I am really on the learning curve for that right now. I don't know. My reaction has been in deep grief to mostly just moonwalk right out, um, and just not be online and be in that space very much. I think most of your listeners probably identify with um, not knowing how safe online spaces are. We
Yeah.
want them to be a place where we can have a real conversation, and yet they go awry so quickly. So, um, my dad died unexpectedly and very traumatically this last summer when we went to a venerable hospital and something went really, really wrong during a routine procedure. And I know other people have stories like that. Ours, um, I'll just say we get calls from people who were in that room who can't sleep because of what they saw. And so we thought we were there for 45 minutes. It was 5 hours of an, I mean, that just that initial procedure. And then it was about 11 days in the ICU, but dad never woke up. And so, our worlds have tilted so extremely on their axes that this is a kind of grief I just have never experienced before. And it is so profound and deep and long. And we're all ricocheting against each other, my siblings and I, and my mom and our spouses, all the kids. They were all up there at the hospital for all of those days. And that was a sweet gift that we have. This is about 3.5 hours from our home. So it was such a sweet thing to be able to have that first flush of um, just deep, deep sorrow together before
Mm.
having to like rejoin our community that has been so supportive. But it has taken everything I have some days just to do the day. So I'm not posting, I'm not writing. We're about 9 months out now. And so I'm feeling just this week, I thought, maybe I'll write again. And that is a
Mm.
maybe question. It's not even,
Yeah.
so to your question, how do I do both of those things? I don't know, Em. I mean, I'm trying to do that in my own life, in my own family. I'm trying to make space for laughter. We had my cousin's wedding last weekend. It was so wonderful. And I danced on that dance floor with my daughters and my son, and Mark the introvert was not dancing. Um, it was wonderful. And we laughed and we smiled. And I noticed that my brother was on the fringes, and after a while, he just left. And
Mm.
all of those things belong. That
Yeah.
may be the sweetest piece of counsel I received. It was right after my dad died. My friend Stephanie texted me. She has experienced insane grief in her life. And she said, I just want you to know everything belongs. Everything.
Mm.
The rage, the disappointment, the sadness, the sorrow, the weird joy, the laughter, the fatigue. Oh my gosh, just the insane fatigue. All of it belongs. And that was
Mm.
a gift to say to me as someone who would prefer to have like some roadmap or some like
Yeah.
milestone for someone to say,
Yeah.
no, it all does. It
Like
all
a
belongs to,
checklist of like,
yeah,
okay, this is the process of grief. And so when I've done that stage, then I'll move
totally.
on to that stage and then I'll do that. I'll tick them off as we've been talking about. I'm in control of it. And then
Exactly.
I'll come out the other side, as opposed to this like crazy, you go forward, you go back, you turned inside out, it's upside down.
Totally. Yeah. It's not linear. And more than that, it's not tameable.
Mm.
I can't tame grief. And so whenever I end up speaking about it, or I'm starting to do some speaking again, and I'm so nervous about how that will all flesh out because I was the girl in junior high who just never learned the poker face. I have a horrible poker face. I can't, if you ask me a question, it's really hard for me, for my face not to tell you the answer. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not good at compartmentalizing. I'm a little nervous about how that will end up when I'm in a room with 500 women and a microphone. We'll see. I'll report back. But in the writing space or online space, I've only spoken when I felt like, really honestly, for my own personal history. I feel like there will be a time when some of these things aren't quite so raw, and I want to remember, I want words to put to this. Not that it makes it neat or tidy, but just some way to have some sort of flesh and bones or scaffolding um, on something that's just been completely life
Mm.
altering. And it helps me remember there's mercy. There's mercy. We
Mm.
are on the hunt for mercy, and we do find mercies.
I was going to ask you how walking when it's, a trauma and it's out of the blue and it's unexpected and it throws you into this pit of grief and unknown emotions and experiences, how have you connected with God in and through the journey? Like, has
Mhm.
that changed how you related to Him? Has it, have you discovered new facets of his
Yeah.
character? Like what has that done for you? And what maybe then would be your encouragement for somebody who finds themselves in a place of not knowing which way is up,
Mhm.
but desperately wanting to be able to hold on to Jesus?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, as you know, and we've talked about this, and you've written about this, and if you've hung out with Jesus for more than a couple seasons of your life, you know that he did not promise the garden path. He did not promise wine and roses. I think the American church in particular has really warped um, the overall gospel message to make it really shiny and happy, which
Hmm.
is funny to me because the end for Jesus on the cross was not shiny or happy. So it's kind of like we're saying, well, you had to suffer, but we will never, even though he said in John 16, look out, guys, in this world,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be rough, but
Yeah.
take heart because I have overcome the world. So we like the last part of that sentence, but we don't really like the first one. I'm included.
Yeah.
I'd rather have wine and roses any day of the week. What I have learned about Okay, I'm going to speak to the person who is in this right now. I mean, the first is just that I see where you are. I'm thinking about how. Hold on, I'll take a drink so I don't sound like a cat.
This is an exact example of you holding your grief and humor together at the same time.
I've been thinking about Hagar and how she was given the
Mm.
honor of this outcast slave, nobody on the social stratum was given the honor of a first mention. When we have first mentions in the Bible, we all freak out. All Bible nerds are like, oh my gosh, this is the first time it's said. She's the first person to give a name to God. And she says, you're the God who sees me. The irony of that, I've been kind of hanging out in that scripture a lot lately. The irony is that what God says to her about her son is horrifying. He's like, he will be a wild donkey of a man and everyone will hate him. And it's not like she has a sweet crib blessing. It's bad. And her
Yeah.
reaction is, you see me. You see me. I am invisible and you see me. And that's what I would say first to you. If you are in the middle of just absolute gutting anything, don't you believe the lie that your God doesn't see. He does. He sees you. Now, that means that anything with you, he sees, and he will not separate himself from you. It also means you can't trust a lot of what you're feeling. Feelings are fantastic bits of information, and we hold them up to the light. And then sometimes I have to back away and say, um, I'm learning new stuff. And this is horribly painful, but I know it's not the end of this stuff. I know there's more in this chapter. There's more in this paragraph. Sometimes just giving myself a moment to say, it's not over yet, is really all I need. It's not over yet. It's not over yet. There are
Yeah.
lots of things about our particular experience that I will probably never know until I see Jesus. And then I guess I'd probably be like, yeah, I don't care. It all worked out,
Yeah.
which for my
Yeah.
personality, you're the one with the 12, 15 books next to you. I like to know.
Yeah.
If you're in grief, you kind of like to know. If you're in struggle or suffering or trauma or tragedy, we think we need all the info, and sometimes you don't get it. One comfort to me, and I would pass this along to our listeners, is that you don't have to make God into something more palatable for you, and he
Mm.
is okay with you shaking your fist. I could not pray for months, and I love prayer. I couldn't read my Bible for months, and I love the Bible. This was so disorienting to me. I felt like I was on Mars. The things that normally were anchors to me and that I've used as anchors in other times of grief, I just couldn't. And one of the prayers I ended up praying, I had two that I banked on. One was, please just keep my heart soft towards you. That's all I want. Just keep it soft. I don't know how you're going to do that, but that's your job, please. Just keep it soft. Because I can't. I don't want to come on
Yeah.
the end of this and have a whole bunch of bitterness towards you. That is not an option. But I have no energy to do anything. Number one,
Yeah.
soft heart. And then the other thing I kept saying to him was, I have known this about you in the past. I have known you to be faithful. I have known you to be a good God. I changed the verb tense because
Mm.
I didn't feel a lot of goodness. I didn't feel very protected in the very beginning. I didn't feel like he was a shield or a refuge. I felt like I was on my own.
Mm.
And he can take those prayers. That's what I'm talking about. We're circling back to the top. He can take me saying, I know in the past I have known this to be true.
Mm.
I'll wait for me to know that again. But I have seen this. That is a sweet way for a daughter to talk to her dad.
Yeah.
Instead of forcing all sorts of like religious speak of this is for a reason and all, I mean, like that's true, but that's not very helpful when you feel like
Yeah.
you've been
Yeah.
filleted. So honest prayers, here we are again. Must be a theme today.
We at the established conference that we've had the last couple of years, there's one song that we've sung both times, and it's got the chorus, I sought the Lord and he heard and he
Yeah.
answered. And it says it
Great.
on repeat. And the lovely Sophie, who's leading worship, last year just had this moment where she just really raw and honest with the room. And she was like, I don't know about you, but sometimes like I look at those words and I can't sing that.
Mm.
um I don't have the confidence to say like, yeah, this, I've sought him and he's answered,
The
and
answer.
G up
Mm-hmm.
everybody, it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
And so she changed the words for those in the room who needed to just say like, I will seek the Lord
Mm-hmm.
and he will answer. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that, might not be there yet,
Yeah.
but and I think what you're saying as well, it's like you might not feel it, but you know from the past that he is good and that
Mm-hmm.
he does love you, even if
Mm-hmm.
you can't quite compute why
Mm-hmm.
the situation is as it is, why circumstances are as they are, why life is playing out in front of you as it is. And yet you know from past experience in your own life or
Mm-hmm.
from what you've read in scripture that he is good and that he does love you, even if it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And so you can say or sing like, I will seek the Lord and he
Mm-hmm.
will answer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I will trust him.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think of David in the Psalms where he's sort of like commanding his soul, like, oh, come on, like
Yeah.
trust him, like, come on, soul, like, do this. It's an
Mm-hmm.
effort, it's a choice,
Mm-hmm.
to lean on him and to trust him. Whew. Thank you for sharing so honestly with us. What are the things that let's expand it out again.
Mm.
So not just the last year or so. What have been the things that touch points through the years of walking with Jesus that have kept you tethered to him and have
Mm.
kept you growing and going?
I have really appreciated the way, and I don't know if this is through the years, this is more recent, but I really have appreciated the way that Jesus didn't hold back himself, but also the way he didn't pretty up how hard it is to be a human being.
Hmm.
Um, when I was researching, ironically, when I was researching the grief chapter for my book before I had any idea what was coming down the back, I loved finding there's an old Tim Keller sermon where he preached about Lazarus. And he kind of broke down in the way that only Tim Keller could the root of some of the words that Jesus was saying in Aramaic. And when it says, our favorite shortest Bible verse, Jesus wept, which got me a lot of silver stars in my kids' Bible quiz program. That word wept actually means it's closer to raged or
Yeah.
hollered
Yeah.
or bellowed is a good word for
Like a
that.
real guttural.
Yes. A visceral response, which is a little confusing because you think, well, wait a minute, he's standing on the precipice of bringing Lazarus back to life. He knows the joy that's coming in a couple seconds where he stands, but he also knows the joy of where Lazarus is then. Like, why of all people would Jesus be like, would be moved? And why would he be? There's a tinge to the word that leans toward anger. He's angry. We know he's not angry at Martha and Mary. It's not their fault. He's not mad at his friend for dying. And Keller makes a very compelling argument that Jesus is showing his rage at death and his rage at the enemy that steals his friends and steals life. And boy, I didn't know how much I'd need that in the next several years. Again, this attention to it is hard being a human being. And I see that. And I'm with you in that. And I'm bellowing. I'm not making some platitude speech of, well, don't worry, it's all going to be okay. This is just really hard. I'm going to bellow. I'm going to weep. I love that about him. I love that in the garden, he very honestly says, can we do this any other way? Is there any other cup? Like, this cup's bad. Can we exchange? I love on the cross that his last words, almost last words, are, where are you? Why have you forsaken me? Why am I by myself? I mean, that is so precious to me. That think of how different we would feel as followers of Jesus if his last words on the cross were like a bunch of speeches.
Yeah.
A bunch of like, and anyway, suffering isn't that bad when you think of it. Like, I'm so glad he was honest. Think of how that would change the entire Christian faith if that last day was full of like his 10-point favorite sermons. Blech.
Yeah. Well, also, it would put us right back into the situation of now these are all the things we have to live up to.
Never. We could never do it. And he knows that. So that's been that's been a tethering for me, not just in the last year, but for other seasons of my life too, especially the last year of knowing, Jesus didn't skip over. He didn't skip over how rough this is, that this is a hard place to be. And he knows it. And he entered it anyway. And he is kind to be with me in this, not alone.
Amen. I am so mindful of time.
I wasn't even noticing because this is so fun for me. Thanks for letting me.
I'm glad that you're having a good time, even though I'm like, cry, like go to all the dark places, feel the heavy pain. You're welcome. Two things. One, how can people find you online and stay in touch and listen to you and all the things? And two, I'm aware that we haven't actually told anyone what is on my Lou wall art just yet. So I will do that in a second. But first of all, Kimberly, how can people stay in touch?
I would say just KimberlyStuart.com. STUART. That's where you can find all the. Sometimes I'm on Instagram and Facebook, but you can also find books and the podcast links and coaching, all that stuff. Retreats at the Oaks if you're ever in San Diego. It's just a lovely spot.
How exciting. And your newsletter and like recipes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're eating now.
Like, so that gets in.
I love food.
That's so funny that people have responses to that. I'm not a cookbook author, but I do eat a lot and I do cook a lot. And so people have a lot of opinions about the recipes.
I love that you put them in there. I mean, I am not a big fan of cooking. I have realized in the last few years, I can cook perfectly adequately. I can cook quite nicely. I just can't be bothered most of the time. And so there have been seasons in our life where the kids have basically been like, or Dan, bless him, my lovely husband, has come home and he's like, well, I came home because otherwise I thought the kids might not eat. And I was like, that's fair. That's a fair comment. So
awesome.
okay. Okay, so my Lou art on the wall, it says, "We don't need any more morons for Jesus," which I did try and quote in my book, and they decided that because it didn't have the context of what you had written in yours, they were like, no, just people won't
That is
understand. I was
so
like, but it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
I just want you to know you're famous in our house because you sent a photo of that. And I was so excited to show everyone I knew. My children all know you. They all know who you are, and they all know, isn't she the one with the best bathroom art?
I do have the best bathroom art. It
Oh,
says,
it's
"We
the
don't need
best.
any more morons for Jesus." Kimberly Stuart. Amazing. But the reason I actually do love that quote, because a lot of people are a bit like, what? Hey, what? First of all, read the book. It's brilliant. As I said, it's one of a very small number of books that I've bothered to read twice. But secondly, like when I am perched on the toilet and I look at that, it is actually just a real reminder of that I don't need to be a moron for
Yeah.
Jesus. And actually, I can go out into the world and choose to love other people more than myself.
Yeah.
And that will reflect far better on him than trying to save the world on his behalf. Just choosing to love people. And so, yeah, I did want to put it in my book after telling a story about some people who wear the title Christian and don't behave that way. And I just wanted to be like, we don't need any more morons, am I right? And most other people were like, no, you can't say that. So I love it that you were able to say it in a way that actually landed and is appropriate. So on that note,
wonderful.
on that note, Kimberly, we do often ask people to just pray us out as a way of finishing our time together. So I just wonder whether you would do us the honor of just praying for those who have listened to us ramble away with each other in a hopefully way that's going to bless and encourage people.
Absolutely. Oh, God, you are really good and sometimes very not understandable to us. And we hold both of those things and remember in this very moment that you're still writing. The ink isn't dry. And so help us today to remember to look at you with both honesty and humility. I pray that the people listening would physically feel your extravagant and stubborn love for them, for us. Pray that whether they're walking, running, driving car, wherever they are, that right this second you would infuse them with a sense of your presence, that they wouldn't just know you're with them, but that they would feel it. I pray that you'll continue to help us to hang up the tap shoes and not keep reaching for ways that we need to prove ourselves to you, but that we would rest fully in the richness of the cross and a grace that is so amazing it can set us fully free. Continue to interrupt our independence, Lord. Interrupt us to remind us that you're the one and you're enough and that we aren't alone. Thank you for Em. I pray that you would just richly, richly bless her and her family and her work. Pray that you would continue to encourage her and infuse courage in her as she runs the race that you have for her. We love you. And we watch for you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen and amen. Kim, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. It's been an absolute joy to have you.
I am so honored to be here, and it was a gift to me. So thanks, Em.
Thanks for listening in and hanging out with me today. If this encouraged you, why not share it with a friend? Or I would love it if you could take a second to rate and review. It really helps more people find the show so they can press in and move forward. And if you want to stay connected, you can find me on Instagram at HelloMTyler or over on Substack at mtyler.substack.com. I would so love to see you there. Until next time, let's keep growing and going.